listening to a One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast that tells the stories of craft beer in Minnesota and beyond. So kick back, relax, and grab a cold one. The show starts now. Hello, my name is Dan Bobian, and I write, produce, and host a One Pint Stand. I'm ecstatic that you're listening. This episode of a One Pint Stand is proudly sponsored by Arbeiter Brewing Company, a multicultural-owned brewery and tap room in South Minneapolis, cultivating a welcoming and safe environment for our diverse community and craft beer enthusiasts. On this episode, I sit down at one of the most historic and wonderful places in Minnesota to grab a beer, Waldmann Brewery. I was joined by founder Tom Schroeder and head brewer Matt Anhalt. We recorded our interview in what would have been Anton Waldmann's bedroom above the tap room, so that was kind of cool. This episode is more like a history lesson than a beer conversation. Tom has a great affinity for historic buildings and is a member of the West 7th community himself. His vision to bring back something from Minnesota's past is truly spectacular, and the story's even better. Now, Matt Anhalt, the head brewer, provides some wonderful insights on how to brew classic craft beer styles that go back hundreds of years. So let's head to the Waldmann Brewery for my beer conversation with Tom and Matt. Cheers. Welcome to another on-location episode of a One Pint Stand. I'm your host, Dan Bobian, and today I'm in one of the oldest drinking establishments in the state of Minnesota, Waldmann Brewery. I'm lucky enough to be joined by owner Tom Schroeder and head brewer Matt Anhalt. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Now, we are up here. I think this is probably if the podcast environment could be a Hallmark card, we're up here in the Buffalo Room. The tree is shining. The ornaments are hanging on the tree, and there's a buffalo staring me down. We're on the second level of what I assume is the original part of the brew house.
We're actually in Anton and Wilhelmina Waldmann's bedroom space, truth be told, in the second level. Like most saloons of that era, the proprietors lived upstairs, and that's where we happen to be. So the historic bar rooms are downstairs.
Yeah, so out the window, we're overlooking Smith Avenue. With the flag blowing in the wind, there's no snow on the ground yet because of, climate change. I'm really excited that we're sitting down here to chat beer. I've wanted to come in and have a beer conversation with you both for a while, and the stars have finally aligned. So there's so much history here, and this is going to be one of those podcasts where I do very little talking. And I'll just ask questions, and those are really the best ones because I know there's so much history and so many stories here. I've been fascinated by Waldmann since it reopened, and I say that because originally this was a lager house, kind of a saloon/tavern back in the mid 1800s. Was it before Minnesota was actually a state?
Yes.
Okay.
It opened 6 months before we gained statehood. Minnesota was not only a territory, it was a slave territory because of the Dred Scott decision that summer. The peak of the financial panic of 1857 was already underway. There was no money, no currency. All transactions were on script, and in that time period, Waldmann builds a fortress saloon out of solid limestone like no other proprietor in the city. It's kind of a crazy history.
Yeah. So it reopened in the modern era in 2017. Ever since this place...
You make that sound so spontaneous, Dan.
Right.
We get to talk about that.
Just on a whim, I'm sure.
It just reopened.
Well, so that's very interesting because around that time, it seemed like sometimes people were like, hey, I want to... order in the court. Sometimes it seemed like people were like, hey, I want to make a quick $1. I'll open up a brewery. That was back, in 2015, 2016, 2017, where they were popping up everywhere, and that seemed like a real foolproof thing to do. I know because I drove past the construction that this probably was a long time in the making. So that's the perfect jumping off point. Why did you decide to purchase this brewery, this I guess location, and create a brewery?
Boy, purchase this brewery. That would have been easy too. This is the craziest story, Dan. So let me just take you from the beginning. And I'll try to be brief. But I live across the street, 4 houses down.
Okay.
Just across, down the alley here.
Yeah, you can see his garage right down the alley there.
I'm a home brewer.
Oh, nice.
I am deeply involved in this neighborhood already. My wife and I had restored our house about 10 years prior. I'm also an attorney, and one of my passions in my legal practice is providing no charge pro bono legal work for historic preservation causes.
Okay.
And by that point in time, I'd already sued the city and God knows how many other people to save old buildings. And in fact, in this neighborhood, I and a colleague at my law firm had just saved the Hope Fire Engine Company, now Hope Breakfast, from demolition. This building was placarded by the city in 2006 for code violations and safety concerns. And I had driven by it just as you had for years, noting that it was an interesting old limestone building, but never really giving it much thought.
Yeah.
Nobody had really done the history on the building yet. It was written up in the AIA's Guide to Historic Archaeology as just the Waldmann house. But if you looked at it with any discernment at all before its restoration, you probably would have surmised that it wasn't simply just a house. It had kind of an ugly duckling look from the front curb. It looked like something had been radically changed with the front facade. And so I didn't have a client for this project. The building was about to be demolished. The family that had owned it wanted nothing to do with it, although they simply didn't have the financial means. So the easiest way to save it was to do some fast negotiating with the family and buy it. I'll never forget pushing my purchase agreement across the table at DeGidio's, and it had a number on it, and Jim Drailing scratched it off and wrote a number half as much and said, "You'll do a good job with it. You take it."
Okay.
So we were off and running. This is in May of 2008.
Okay.
And
wow.
So when you talk about it seemed like a good idea in 2015, I was already 7 years into it by then.
Sure. Okay.
But, and what we discovered, as a good lawyer, I did my research and quickly discovered, in fact, it wasn't simply a house. It was a very, very early territorial saloon building. And even cooler than that, a lager beer saloon.
Yeah.
I'd only brewed a couple of lagers. Lagers are tough. I mean, you're going to talk about that with Matt in a moment, I hope. But I was just like, wow. I mean, not only have I discovered this great little limestone structure in my own backyard, but it's the oldest surviving commercial building in the Twin Cities and a lager beer saloon to boot.
Yeah. What are the odds?
What are the odds? So we went about restoring it cautiously, knowing that the city wouldn't permit a commercial restoration. We didn't have zoning at the time.
What, when you say commercial restoration, what does that mean?
Well, it had been a saloon.
Okay. And
from the beginning, I was fantasizing, and really it was only at that level, fantasizing about what would it be like to reopen the Waldmann Saloon. And I wasn't even thinking brewery. I was thinking, this could be beer and wine license, and maybe just long necks, and maybe it's a social club, VFW style, who knew? And so I did a little more research, figured out that Minneapolis had something called a historic use variance process that provided a zoning exception for historic structures, designated historic structures, to be used for their original purpose. And I shot an email to our city council member, David Thune, at the time, and I said, Dave, if we pass this, we could do some pretty cool things with Waldmann. And within a minute, he replied saying, Tom, you draft it and I'll get it through.
Okay. Wow. So a lot of people thought this had potential.
At that point in time, 2 people thought that this had potential. Yeah, no, we had a long voyage from there, and but we did, as you know, with every step of the restoration work and working hand in hand with the city through the historic use variance process and the zoning issues, and then ultimately the brewery licensing issues and building the business plan. And yes, as you alluded to, there was a bit of a process working with our immediate neighbors to make sure they knew this wasn't just a get-rich-quick scheme to add yet another bar in, West 7th. And nothing wrong with the bars in West 7th. They're great community establishments. But I really conceived of this as a historic restoration, not just an architectural one, but the full experience, full immersion, full on. And that's, we just got carried away.
Yeah. So you said that was back, 2007, 2008. When the taproom bill passed in 2011, how did that affect your plans? Or did that make things easier, or did it make things trickier? Because now you're like, okay, well, now we have this to consider.
That head exploding emoji.
Yeah.
I can't really do that on podcasts, but that's how I felt at the time. I mean, that was it. And that's really what caused me to pivot from a beer and wine license to a brewery.
Yeah.
And as I thought about that, the opportunity, I mean, at that point in time, mind you, there are really, and I don't want to defame any breweries, but there were really no good German lagers anywhere in the Midwest other than Shell's.
Right.
And in fact, that's what we modeled our initial lineup after. I mean, shout out to Jason, others at Shell's. But then with the taproom license opportunity, the thought came to us that now we had yet another chance to not just recreate the furniture and the building and the ambiance, but the beer experience too could be full on, authentic, crafted to tailor with the building. And when I give tours of the brewery, I mean, Matt laughs at me. I spend more time talking about history back in the brewery than I do about brewing. But I really believe that stainless and that process and what Matt's doing there is every bit as important to the history and the full immersion experience in the front of house in this historic structure.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I should say we are sampling some of Matt's handiwork right now, the Pilsner. This is so delicious.
Thank you.
So crisp, so clean.
Yeah.
The aroma is like that. I call it, I know this is not a scientific term, but for lack of a better descriptor, it's if you've ever been in a lake in northern Minnesota and swam under like a floating dock and you get that kind of like a metallic, mineralic aroma, it's got that.
That sounds scientific to me.
I think that there's something happens in the beer, and that's what it smells like to me. And it's not a bad smell. It's like when I smell that smell, I know, okay, this was a well-made beer. And so this is a Pilsner, great way to start the conversation.
well, and again, I want Matt to talk more about these beers in a moment, but this is a great embodiment of what I'm talking about. I mean, this is our flagship. And it's not intended to slavishly replicate a German Pilsner. In fact, it doesn't at all. We could get down to the detail on that. But the intent was to emulate what we know brewers with a German brewing mindset would have been, in some ways, forced to do here in the Midwest.
Sure.
In the 1850s and 60s. And it's like, if you gave Beethoven an electric guitar, what would he crank out? And that's maybe a little bit crazy of an analogy, but the cluster hops that we're using in this beer, I don't know of anyone brewing a Pilsner with clusters these days.
Yeah.
But that was the only hop available to those early brewers because that was predominantly what was transported across the Erie Canal to brewers here in the territory of St. Paul. And so that verisimilitude is important, even if you're not going to flip open the BJCP style guide and see someone advocating the use of clusters, for God's sake, in a German Pilsner. But it's, that is the style guide for Waldmann.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that makes the experience here so unique. And again, the thread of history throughout our conversation, and from the walking in the door, looking at the scenery, sitting up here, sitting in that front room downstairs where the window panes look like, I think
Look like you've had too much.
Right, exactly. No such thing as too much of this delicious Pilsner, though. But it reminded me of when we...
For the audience, they're hand-blown distorted glass.
Yes,
That's what he's referring to.
Yeah. But like when we went to, as elementary school kids, we'd go to Fort Snelling and see some of that stuff. Like that's the vibe that I got the first time I came in here. I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. Yeah. And it's so cool and it's so special. Mm-hmm. And so I have to imagine, Matt, to kind of, you have the tough job. You have to pay homage to the history of this place. It's easy if it's like, warehouse space in Northeast Minneapolis. You get some Edison bulbs and get some uncomfortable metal chairs and you crank out a cool Spotify list and you got yourself a brewery. What are some of the challenges in the brew house when it comes to helping kind of continue that kind of historic feel?
Interesting question on challenges in finding that historic feel. I think the only real challenge is like how dedicated are you to that history?
Yeah.
Because with modern tools, history is just the lack of modern tools, right? So in the ethos of the beer, it's like we look forward by looking backwards. So what did they do in 1850s for mash regimens? What was the hop profile? Like Tom said, like cluster is a hop grown in New York State. There wasn't importing of like German or Czech saws. There wasn't Mittelfuhrer coming across the Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
So they used what they had. So in homage to that, our bitterness profiles are German, our malt profiles of that are Bohemian, but the hops are traditionally what Waldmann would have. And I find like there's really no challenge if you stick to what you know and what you're looking for in an out product, which is Waldmann's Pilsner. This is the Pilsner that signifies me as a brewer, this place as a brewery. This is 50% of our entire brewing production is this one beer.
Yeah.
And so just looking at it that way, like challenges are, replication of lager beer. That's always, making sure all of your numbers line up and your consistency over time and whatever. But to be real with you about that, in the historical sense, they didn't have any of the checks and balances.
Right.
There's no QC department in 1856. You know what I mean?
Was the one regular who always came in and
totally.
He was like, this tastes off to me.
I mean, the QC department is like my sensory palate.
Yeah.
And which is like grown from all the great breweries I've had a chance to work at, from all the people that have shared their great products with me and things like that, but like honing in over time on like what I want the experience of your first beer at Waldmann to be like gets us to this point.
Yeah.
And so I've made 30-ish versions of this Pilsner because I consistently change it by like 0.05%.
Yeah.
I'm learning each time we brew this beer. It's the same beer, but it's brewed by me with the knowledge of the last beer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this isn't like, I don't get a recipe and sit down and be like, well, we're brewing Pilsner today. You pop in my metal and here we go.
Yeah.
No, this is like, all right, what does the grain feel like today? How am I feeling? What is the temperature of the water coming in? How is the pH of St. Paul's water changed? Blah, blah, blah. So every time we brew this, it's a new singular thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is a historical point in itself because like replication is the hardest thing for history.
Right.
Well, the cool thing about that, Matt, you're making me think about this, and back to my electric guitar for Beethoven analogy, I mean, a historic brewer would have given their soul to be able to have the opportunity to brew with the degree of precision and replicability that we can today. So, recreating these historic brews isn't simply about replicating the mistakes and the bad quality and, and the inability to really dial it in of the sort you just described. Mm-hmm. But it's about taking that intent and that objective mindset and being able to leverage the modern technology to dial it in exactly the 30 iterations you have to produce this fabulous beer, and that's cool.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, like we could use. We can get a little more technical. There is no There is no clarification in these beers. There is no kettle refinement. There's no yeast nutrient. There's no CO2 added for carbonation. This is all naturally gespunded. This is all carbonation is natural through fermentation.
Yeah.
So these beers, technically, you can't be Reinheitsgebot outside of Germany, but this is a Reinheitsgebot beer.
Sure.
There is nothing added to this beer at all. So, like, I don't adjust the pH of mash water, any of that. I go through all of the rests. I start at like 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and over 4 hours make my way up to sack rest at 148, and then I decoct it.
Okay.
So there's no, like, you couldn't cut corners back in 1856, and I don't think that technology is cutting corners. It's understanding corners and how to get around them faster. So it's like, it makes it more simple when you take away all the things that time has like kind of given you to get past certain things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's a different feel when you mash in cold and wait for 3 hours and sit there and watch it spin and sometimes get dizzy because you're sitting there watching the mash or whatever. But the smells are different. The product's different. My effort is different. My care is different. So,
well, and I think that there's when you talk about lagers, it's such an interesting thing when a lot of us, I think, got into craft beer. When you thought lager, you thought macro. You thought like, oh, this is the stuff you drink at softball, or this was what my grandpa drank, or different things. And I think of there's a lot of beer history on West 7th if you go down, and I think that there were a lot of lager things happening here, but now lagers are so interesting and having. I don't want to say a renaissance, because I'd like to believe that for the truly nerdy, geeky beer person, that they never were not in vogue. I think that if you want to show the brewing acumen of somebody, have them brew a Pilsner. There's no place to hide a flaw.
There's no hiding.
And it's what a lot of people say, beer-flavored beer. It's just, sometimes I want a beer.
Yes.
I want this. I don't want a liquid chocolate cake with several other candy bars thrown in. There's a time and place for that. But like this is just like, I want this all the time, and it's so special.
And not in like a egotistical way, but authenticity has a flavor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like macro lagers have their own authenticity. I mean, no shade to them. I think being the same beer in Australia and Argentina is like a very huge thing to do correctly, right? That is insane and wonderful. But like, it's not. It is what that is, and this is what this is. So,
a question I have for you along the brewing vein: how many barrels of beer do you produce a year?
2023, we did 485-ish barrels.
Okay.
So we are the micro of the micro.
Yeah, that's teeny tiny.
It is. So we brew 36 to 38 batches a year.
Okay.
Basically. So I'm brewing pretty much once every 10 days.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have some horizontal tanks.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to me, because I've seen those at a few places as I've traveled around. So for our listeners to kind of understand the difference between brewing a lager in a, I guess, vertical tank versus horizontal, what's the difference? Why would a horizontal tank lend itself better to lager brewing?
Good questions. I think horizontal tanks lend themselves to two beers types specifically. Weizen beers, wheat beers, and lager beers specifically. And it comes down to the types of yeast that are being used.
Okay.
And I think for the listener, the anecdote that I like is some yeasts like to be squeezed and some don't like to be squeezed. And what that's in reference to is the amount of hydrostatic pressure on the yeast. And hydrostatic pressure is just how much water is in a column and how tall is your column. So if you have a 100-foot column of water, at the bottom of that column is a lot more weight than if you have a 1-foot column of water.
Okay.
Right? So if you have a tall vertical tank and it comes to a cone at the bottom, there's a lot of hydrostatic pressure on that yeast. So it can provide, I mean, the conditions for lager brewing are wide, but if you're looking at it to be as gentle and as, I guess for lack of a better phrase, like less harmful to your yeast, the best environment is the goal, right? So correct pH, the least amount of hydrostatic pressure possible. So a horizontal tank, mine are 38 inches in height total. My verticals are just under 7 feet.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
sure.
So there's a very big difference.
It's a huge difference. Yeah.
And being that, you know, lagers are also bottom fermenting, there is so much more surface area on the bottom of a horizontal aligned tank than there would be on a vertical. So you're just getting more space for that yeast to eat, more space for that yeast to replicate, more space in general. Ale yeast, you know, super robust. I mean, you can just ferment ales anywhere you want, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they just really don't care. And I mean, I'm only about a year into doing lagers on the horizontal scale. Also, I would always take my lagers from verticals and then move them to secondary in my horizontals. Now I'm straight horizontal all the way through.
Well, and for those wheat beers where the flavor profile is so much wedded with the yeast, to have that full contact of that extended trout bed in a horizontal fermenter, that's
Totally. I mean,
that can't hurt.
To Tom's point on that, like if you're talking Hefeweizens, that is the top fermenting beer, right? Hefeweizen's head, it's big, Krausen, it's all over the floor. I take pictures of it all the time. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So to have that much top, surface area, my wheat beers are done in like 40 hours.
Wow.
Or something like that, maybe even less. I mean, it's so fast and it's so wonderful. And the only downside, literally the only downside to horizontals is it's nearly impossible to get a good pitch of or a good crop of yeast afterwards, good repitch, just because there's no access to the top.
Yeah.
But from the fermentation things, it's elongated it on my lagers by like a day or two.
Okay.
But it's been more consistent in the pH drops, and it's been more consistent in all the parameters that I look for as a brewer in fermentation. Yeah. And I just think like it's just less volatile. It just seems happier.
Sure. Well, and I think yeast health is, I mean, if you're stressing out your yeast, that's when you start to get off flavors and bad things happening in the beer.
Unless you're Belgian.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. Good point. Yeah.
Which we are not.
Yes. So tell me about your brewing journey. I think I know about a couple of your stops, but take me back to the first time you became enamored with craft beer.
Oh boy, this is okay. So I've really only held like 3 major jobs in my 40 years. I've been a short order cook, I've been a bartender, and I've been a brewer. So everything's kind of revolved around, customer experience or something like that. I had just finished college. I had been going to school for philosophy. Was looking for a job, and actually, let's back it up a little bit. What changed? What made me think that beer is different? I used to be a big Heineken guy. I thought Heineken was like the creme de la creme, and I don't think it's bad at all by any means. Now that
was the first brewery tour I ever went on, the Heineken tour in Amsterdam. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So going from Heineken, I tried a beer from, it's called the Curious Fox, and it was a Flemish red, and it tasted like a llama's hay bed, and I didn't know that Cuvée de Jacobin. I didn't know that liquid could taste like that.
Yeah.
And so after that, then it was Sierra Nevada, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are hops? And then that just happened to be 2011, and they're surly, and so it's like, what is Furious? What is all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So drinking changed for me and whatever. I'm still a big tequila and Fernet guy at that time, so it kind of fit right into brewing. That was my way into that. But so I get out of college and I need a job, and my friend Jules Meyer, I'll drop that name. He's a huge influence in my brewing career. So he was brewing at the time at Harriet Brewing in the former space or the space of current Arbiter.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you want to come clean kegs? I was like, what does that mean? So I started cleaning kegs. I started cleaning tanks. Within a couple of months, I was brewing beer. Then we brewed there for a couple of years. I got approached by a guy named Ryan Mim, who worked at Allagash and New Belgium.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
He was currently head brewer at Insight Brewing.
Yep.
So he, lack of a better phrase, poached me from Harriet. I went to Insight. That was, August of 2015. So I started in 2014 brewing, 2013 brewing at Harriet, right around there. And then August 1st of 2016, I was promoted to head brewer at Insight.
Okay. Yep.
Which, I mean, shout out to those guys. That's the quintessential fake it till you make it. 3 years into a brewing career and you're a head brewer.
They spotted talent.
I mean, luckily to them, I had wonderful teachers, so it wasn't like I was walking in blind. But what an eye-opening experience we did. I mean, we went from 8,000 barrels to 11,000 barrels by 2018.
They grew fast.
Yep, and that was all, I mean, so much opportunity to learn and grow and to make mistakes and to make friendships and figure out how to manage people and manage yourself and manage time in a brewery and all that kind of stuff. So post-Insight, through the pandemic, I ended up at Able Brewing for a couple of years. When Able was bought out by Booch Kombucha, I moved to Wild Mind Ales for a good 4-month stint before coming here to Waldmann. And there I worked with a guy named Austin Myron that guy is knocking spontaneous sours out of the park. So getting a lovely, crash course on how to have lagers next to Brett beers and not worry about that. Superman
better you than me.
better him than us too. But he's nailing it. So I'm going to let him keep nailing it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I had a long interview process with technical interviews and 2 meetings with Tom and phone call and all this stuff. And I ended up getting the job here.
Yeah.
And then, so here we are.
Yeah.
I guess one thing about that journey too, a coincidence and a lovely coincidence is Harriet Brewing focused only on German beers and Belgian beers.
Right.
They were both sides of the teeter-totter, that's it, right? You had the Belgian triple, and you had lager beer.
Yeah.
Right? You had the Pilsner, we did wheat beers, we did all of that. So open fermentation Hefeweizens, I did before I even know what a Hefeweizen was.
Okay.
And to that point, I've never homebrewed.
Oh, really?
Literally never.
That is quite noteworthy. I would say, if you had to put a number on it, what percentage of brewers would you say have never homebrewed? It's got to be
At my level?
teeny tiny.
I mean, I don't know anybody else.
You might be the only one. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
So philosophy is a new career pathway for brewers?
If you could put philosophy with biology, because I had to read a book and figure out what a water molecule was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't really teach us that in Kantian philosophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no home brewing. Luckily, Jules Meyer, one of my big influence, like I said earlier, he was an avid home brewer for 10 years. And so just being able to have his knowledge of how to get around problems, and how to put out fires and how to understand that relax, as Charlie Papazian would say, relax, have a home brew.
Yeah.
That's kind of been stuck with me for that whole time. So, the whole culmination of that has led me right here, which is exactly where I'm supposed to be brewing.
Well, so interesting, Insight, fairly large production brewery.
Yeah.
Coming to a place where you're doing 400 barrels a year. In my head, I'm like, oh, wow, that's quite the difference.
At the top, Insight, we're just about 11,000 barrels. I had a team of 15 or 16, including QC. We had a street team. We had all of this, managing all of that. We did 300 barrels a week all year, right? And and I do 480 barrels in a year. So it's like I was doing more beer there in 2 weeks than I've done here in the last year.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And my mental health is so much better here.
I can imagine.
I was going to say, Dan, pry that one open.
Yeah.
So much better.
How is this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's...
Can I just interject on that? It was so interesting interviewing candidates this last go-around where I finally blessedly found Matt. The number of brewers at far larger breweries than us who were just clamoring for an opportunity to do pretty much what we do here.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to sound boastful in saying that, but I mean, we are focused wholly on the production of beers that some people may say one-offs, but I don't care. The best in style, as much variety as we can conquer in a year. Again, keeping within our brewing philosophy, and we don't have to please a distributor.
No, not a bit.
I mean, we're a brew pub.
Right.
This
and
is
that's
a
pretty
unicorn job.
sweet spot.
Yeah. I interviewed Andy from Northbound. We had a great conversation.
We love Andy. Yeah, we love
And
Andy.
he's an awesome, just a good human being, very, very good at what he does.
Yes, he does.
And, kind of he echoed a lot of your sentiments that, yeah, it's nice to brew at a scale that isn't driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of people, the allure of brewing is creating.
Yes.
And how do you get in the headspace to where you can create if you have to keep just grinding through the same? And I notice a difference, just kind of like, I love variety. I don't think that, when I'm going out to go enjoy a beer, I tend to gravitate to the places where there's a little bit of variation on the tap list. And I love coming to a place like Waldmann and finding a style that, what's a German porter? What's I know what an English porter is, but what's a German porter?
Yeah.
And you're brewing things that people have probably never seen before, maybe can't pronounce, and that's a fun thing.
Like a Weihnachts Dunkelweißen Doppelbock beer.
Yeah.
Just added to tap last week.
Tell me about that.
So
That's I'm intrigued.
I don't know how many letters are in it, but it's a very long word. Weihnachts Dunkelweißen Doppelbock beer. So broken down is.
In fact, I picked up this recipe from our printer, and the title, the name went off the edge of the page. It did.
You want to win a game of Scrabble in one round?
That's
Play
it right there. Yeah.
Boom.
So Weihnachts translates literally to, or Weihnachts beer, Christmas beer.
Okay,
So
yeah.
We do a holiday thing. It's released usually right around when our Glühwein is released for our tree lighting ceremony and for Krampus and things like that in the holiday season. So it is one of the few, technically it's the only beer, well, there's been, the Radler does have an adjunct, but it's like the only spiced beer I ever do here. It's the only thing that has ingredients that aren't malt, hop, water, and yeast.
Okay.
And so we did toasted candied orange peels. There was ginger. There was 2 different kinds of cinnamon. There was vanilla. There was 120 pounds of orange blossom and wildflower honey. It was fermented with a wheat beer yeast in a horizontal tank.
Okay.
And I kept it cold just to bring out some clove. So what I really wanted to do is like, if you were lucky enough to have a grandma that liked Christmas and you walked into their house and it was like kind of smelled like nice vanilla and you just like wanted a cookie, that's kind of what I was going for with this.
Yeah.
And I, shout out to Sammy Smith's Winter Warmer. That's one of the beers that I've always like really liked around the season. That just feels big with some alcohol and like makes you feel warm and looks good by a fire and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Well, you said honey. You said some kind of baking spices, orange. I just installed in my basement kegerator a half barrel of Great Lakes Christmas Ale, and that has a lot of those similar characteristics. And there's something really nice about that, especially this time of year. But like that whole going into Grandma's house and just like smelling those smells, it's just so comforting. And I can't wait to sip on that and right by that Christmas tree, have a little heart-to-heart with the buffalo, and that's going to be a really special time.
Yeah.
But so say the name again,
Weihnachts,
Weihnachts,
Nachchts is Weihnachts.
Oh, sure. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So Weihnachts, and then it's Dunkelweißen Bock beer. So a dark...
Gesundheit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
A dark wheat beer of Bock strength.
Okay.
So box strength has to be over 6%.
Sure.
And then
okay.
Weissen is wheat, right? So it's our Christmas beer. It's our Christmas wheat strong beer.
I love it.
Yeah, Gesundheit.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, I never asked. Of course, I try to come up with a plan and stick to a plan. But we get talking on different things. What's your favorite style of beer to drink?
Sorry about swearing on the podcast.
No, that's okay. We're not regulated by the FCC. Go ahead.
Love that.
I've had Cable on here before. He's like,
oh my gosh.
his first question was like, "Can I swear?" I'm like, "Yes, you can." and then it was like,
everybody needs
Gilbert
a Cable
Godfrey after 3 whiskeys. It was wild.
Man, I saw him in at Treasure Island once. He had a 15-minute set. It was probably I can't get those 15 minutes back. All right, so favorite style to drink. That's shoot. Okay, what pops into my head? You know what? This lines right up with like what my favorite beer in the world to drink is at the bar at Bierstadt Lagerhaus in Denver and drinking the Helles.
Yes,
That's my favorite beer in the world to drink because of the experience of walking into Bierstadt, because of seeing the copper kettles, because of knowing Ashley, because of all that kind of stuff. That's number one. If I've got to buy it in a bottle, I'm probably drinking. I mean, Pilsner Quell is up there. Hofbräu Hefeweizen is up there. Anything with a German label that I can't pronounce or read, that's kind of up there. My go-to at home, Coors Banquet in the 12-ounce brown bottles.
Sure.
Absolutely love it.
Okay.
I mean, I love base beers. I love being grounded. I mean, I made IPAs for 8 years of my career, and I think IPAs are, they're wonderful. But, man, if I want to drink a beer, I want to drink something light, or I want to drink something that tastes like bananas.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's me. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Tom? What's your favorite beer style to quaff?
Let me start with my favorite beer, and then we can talk about style. But a Wesletteren 12, Belgian double.
Come on.
In a brick Undercroft in Bruges with a wax tallow candle burning at my table. That was the most amazing.
Brewery ownership doesn't work out. I think you have a career in romance novels.
Well,
that was, wow.
Now you know why we look this way in here. It's all coming down to this voice.
Oh, yeah.
And let me just confess, I stole the glass. And that's an amazing, amazing beer. No, I will say this honestly, with no intent for flattery, but in all truthfulness, I like any brew Matt brews. I mean, I genuinely, and Matt knows this, he comes in my office 3 times a week with a sample of beer, a taste from a vat, various stages of production. And I'm always impressed, and I always thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, it's one of the greatest joys of my life to have those experiences and to appreciate all of these styles and their subtle differences and what they bring out from both the ingredients, but as importantly, the brewing process. And I'm just a constant learner, and I just love that.
Yeah.
If you held me down and forced me to state a favorite style, I have a memory of a time when I had a favorite style, and it was sitting in the ruins of what were then Waldmann. It was a gutted stone structure. Some friends and I had just gone to the local liquor store and bought a bunch of random beers. And the Shell's Vienna Lager just blew me away. I loved the Firebrick.
Yeah.
And I rue that name. I mean, this is the one criticism I would have of Shell's. I really, I wish they would have given and would give names that really educate the style. But I get marketing. But that Firebrick was fabulous. And one of our very first beers was candidly a knockoff of that. As close as we could come.
Well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well,
I've got an empty glass, and you just were talking about that.
Weihnachts Dunkelweizen Bock beer.
Yes, try saying that. If you can say that 10 times fast, you can. I will give you my car keys. So let's take a little break. When we come back after the break, I want to talk about the community that Waldmann Brewery has created here off of West 7th in St. Paul. And again, we are joined by Tom and Matt here at Waldmann Brewery. You are listening to a One Pint Stand. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you're enjoying a One Pint Stand. My aim is to help spread the word about craft beer. Enjoying craft beer is a passion of mine, and I love chatting about it with other people. A One Pint Stand has a goal of helping breweries tell their stories. I love to get out in and beyond Minnesota to visit breweries, beer bars, and meet other interesting beer people. Now, if you're also into those things, you probably want to keep tabs on the show. So go ahead and follow a One Pint Stand on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitter. Now, I have a TikTok account, but it went away for like a day. And so I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be something that kind of gets turned on and turned off as we have a new resident in the White House. So for now, a One Pint Stand TikTok is up, and there's some great little videos on there. But, you know, if I get visited by Secret Service demanding that I take it down because they don't like the breweries I'm going to, I'll probably migrate on to something different. But for now, TikTok is where you can find me. We would also appreciate any and all positive reviews on Spotify and Apple Music or wherever it is you're listening to us to help make it easier for other craft beer listeners to find us. If you want to be a supporter of the podcast with some of the extra change that you found in your couch cushions, I have a Patreon. There are 3 different monthly levels of support, and they are priced at $1, $3, or $5 a month. Now, if you pledge the $3 or $5 monthly level, you get some pretty cool perks. So go to patreon.com, search up a One Pint Stand, and check it out. We are up to 17 total supporters, and that is a big deal. So hopefully that continues to grow in 2025. It means better equipment for the show. It means more opportunities to bring equipment with me when I travel, and just more opportunities to create interesting content that hopefully you enjoy. If you like reading about craft beer, check out my written work at aonepintstand.com. I love to write, and that's where you can find a lot of my written content covering local beer happenings, my craft beer travels, and my long-awaited favorite brewery lists. They're all on there too. So I truly appreciate you listening and taking time to enjoy our stories. Now, before we head back to the show, I want to talk about this episode's sponsor, Arbeiter Brewing. They always have so many cool little events happening throughout the year, but January is Arbeiter's month. This upcoming weekend, they'll have their annual Lunar New Year party with special beer releases and family-friendly activities, including traditional Korean drumming and dance, Omihatoki, and Caffeine Vietnamese Coffee Stout, a collaboration with Caffeine Coffee Shop. Next week, they're celebrating their 4th anniversary, complete with a 4-pack of Belgian Quad barrel-aged 4-ways, and their annual bottle release of Foundation Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout. They also have an early bird special for their beer club until January 31st. It's a great deal, and if you happen to be a regular at Arbeiter, you're going to want to join. And be on the lookout for a guitar giveaway promotion and beer collaboration with Minneapolis Guitars. Wowza! All of this is on Arbeiter's social media. Check it out, stop in, you won't be disappointed.
How about a beer?
All right, well, welcome back to the second half of our Waldmann Brewery episode. I'm Dan Bobie, and I'm here in St. Paul, in the oldest brewery in the state.
Well, let me just refine that a little bit.
Oh, wait, no. I take that back. York was the first one.
Oldest surviving commercial building.
Okay.
Waldmann was never a brewer, so that's my sort of twist on history.
Okay.
He was a lager beer saloon owner. But you're correct. York's is the first documented brewery in the state, 1848.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right up the street.
Yeah.
Yep.
There and that's the thing. There's Andy at Bad Weather does this Heritage Lager series. Mm-hmm. I think for the first one, he touched base with one of the brewers from the old Schmidt Brewery and did a recipe and had a little kind of a Q&A with the brewer, and it was fascinating.
Yeah.
To hear him talk.
I got to meet him as well, yeah.
And that's just, I mean, there's so much cool beer history.
Yeah.
So I have a alumni classmate who I went to high school with, who is an author and a professor, and he co-wrote the book Closing Time.
Oh, Bill Lindicky?
Bill Lindicky.
Oh,
yep.
God, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That was great.
And where I'm going to be doing a live show up at Forgotten Star. And Bill's going to be
It's a great spot.
One of my guests, and we're going to do kind of like a beer history kind of a panel. And
you know chapter 3 in Closing Time, don't you? That's about Waldmann.
Yeah. That's why I brought it up, because you were one of the places featured, and one of the coolest things, and I'm sure you probably have a lot of different artifacts, but the map of the rendering of what this neck of the woods looked like.
Oh,
back then.
yeah, Prince's 1852 map of St.
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. I call that my butterfly collection. In the course of getting historic designation for Waldmann, I researched all of the other licensed saloons operating in St. Paul in the same 5-year period that Waldmann did, and I had this box full of historic licenses, complete with owner and address information. So I started plotting them out on that Prince's map, that 1852 real estate map, and it was really kind of cool to see where these were splayed. And Waldmann was far to the western suburbs, and of those buildings, I've got over 150 mapped downstairs. But of all those buildings, we're the only one that survives.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So for a building to not be taken down, it has to survive for 100 years, correct? Or how does that work? Because I know that there's like, once a building is like around for a certain amount of time, it gets a historical designation.
So the minimum period for National Register designation is 50 years. And so, a lot of buildings from the 70s are now being designated. It amazes me. But National Register designation doesn't protect a structure from being demolished.
Okay.
Surprisingly, to most people, local designation is the most powerful preservative for buildings, and that's what we sought and obtained for this structure. We are a St. Paul Heritage Preservation Landmark, and in the course of documenting and gaining designation for this structure, I intentionally wrapped in 5 other limestone structures in the neighborhood, none of them saloons, but 5 other structures that also lacked protection at the time, because they were all built by the same small group of German stonemasons in the same time period, using the same materials as Waldmann.
Okay. And was that pretty common back in that area for there to be so much limestone used?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you can imagine, St. Paul originally was a city of 7 hills, similar to the nomiker for Rome. And but that was an impediment to commercial traffic. So I
don't even want to bike. Much less lug a slab of limestone around.
As sloped as it seems today, it was much hillier back in the day, and so they systematically graded and literally blasted flat several of the promontories in downtown. And for each street grading, they had piles and piles of limestone. I've got a picture of the Green Tree Saloon in 1856, and I show it to people and I ask, what do you think that stack of stuff in front of it is? And they say, oh, that's wood. Well, no, it's not. It's limestone. So there's a reason Waldmann stonemason used limestone for this building here. It was freely available at the time.
Oh, sure.
Everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, we're drinking a new beer now. It was the one that if you have all the tiles in Scrabble, you win automatically.
Weihnachts Dunkelweißen Doppelbock beer.
Yeah, that one. Weihnachts Dunkelweißen Doppelbock beer.
Yep.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'm sure that pronunciation gets easier with each pour.
The menu just says Weihnachts.
Yeah.
We do have the full write out in the description and whatnot, but we were not gonna make our servers hate me at all, so we just stuck with Weihnachts.
Welcome to Waldmann. Would you like to try a wine? Oh no, I have to go home now. My brain hurts.
Pretty much.
There's a lot going on in this beer. The one thing I noticed when I first brought it up to my nose is orange.
Oh, awesome.
Like that is such a almost.
It's like fresh underpeel. Almost.
Yeah. It's a very, but I like chocolate orange. Did you ever get those like
In the foil?
Yeah, in the
totally.
foil, the chocolate orange. I associate chocolate orange with Christmas, and this is like this has some of those qualities, and then the flavor. There's a really nice complexity of malts. What malts did you use in here?
What malts didn't he use? It might be the question.
This one's I guess a quick tangent of how I look at a recipe design. There are so many available malts that you can make. Let's say let's just take an amber for example. You can make an amber with 2 different types of malts, or you can make an amber with 5 types of malts. And so if you have 2 types, you have like your coloring malt and you have your base malt. If you have 5 types, you might have your base malt, you might have a coloring malt, you might have a roasted malt, you might have like a Pils malt, you might have other malts to complete the spectrum of the kilning process on the malts. So what I think about it is building something like this is in the 1850s, different malts were kilned, over like live fire and rotated by hand and all this kind of stuff. So you were never going to get, your base malt wasn't going to be 3 level bonds and your chocolate wasn't going to be 335 every time. It was going to be all over the board and whatever.
Sure.
So in designing these beers, I try to incorporate, and I'm not going, the word of Germans is restraint, right? So I'm not going, overboard with a lot of stuff. But I think the palate is better suited with like a more rainbow approach as opposed to a very like regimented single lane approach.
Okay.
So for this beer, I had there was floor malted Bohemian Pils. There's floor malted wheat. There was Weirmann's Carafa Special 1, Weirmann's Cara Bohemia, there was Cara Amber, there was Carafa Special 3, there was Cara Hell, there was acidulated, there was...
Used both dark wheat and chocolate wheat.
See, Tom, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to remember, I used dark wheat, there was chocolate, so Cara wheat was in there, so chocolate wheat, floor malted dark wheat, so color gradients of malts basically go from like, let's just say 0 to 400. They're more like 0 to 650 or whatever with roasted bread. Anyway, I think that if you're trying to get a dark color, you take one from every like quarter, every like 25 level bonds, right?
Okay.
You try to pull a malt in from all of these spectrums.
Sure.
And if you keep the percentages low, you get the color that you want, but you really bring out the complexity of the malts because it's not 2-track, it's a rainbow.
Yeah.
And I think that lends itself. I mean, you talk about a Pilsner, right? There's acidulated malt and floor malted Bohemian. And you're talking about this, and I got 8 different things in there because I needed complexity to balance. I mean, my whole life is built around balance. I'm a Libra, so there's just a lot of like that going on with me personally, but also in brewing, like to balance out all of the sweetness of honey and vanilla and orange peel. I needed roastiness. I needed chocolatiness. I needed lots of other things out of these malts to bring about that balance.
Well, and color is an incredibly complicated thing in beer, Matt. You can explain this much better than I could. But I mean, when he first brought this beer to me very early in the fermentation process, it was quite light.
Yeah,
I mean,
brownish.
it refracted the light completely differently than it does in its finished state here. And I remember saying to you, "Is this going to be a dark beer batch?" Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
It was just like,
in fact, you've said that about a couple of them, because that's just how it goes. Yeah. So to that, technically, what Tom's referring to is, and he's not wrong at all. It is literally lighter because light reflects off of particles in your drinks, in your liquids, right? In a beer in fermentation, just has millions and billions of yeast cells still in float, in flux, in solution. That's the word I'm looking for. So as a light hits something that's very permeated with these light-colored yeast cells at a very high abundancy, it reflects the light as a light complexion.
Oh, okay.
When that yeast is removed, which we don't use any clarifiers here, there's no centrifuge, there's nothing. There's only time and temperature. So after the month of clarification, a lot of those yeast cells have dropped out of solution, and the beer becomes clear. And clear doesn't reflect as much light, so it looks much, much darker.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because the light's able to pass through, and all you really get is the color. You don't get any reflection parts. And the reflection is what brings out lightness in a beer. So if you look at a Hefeweizen, right? You shine a light at a Hefeweizen. If you shine the light at it from like a distance, it looks very bright and yellow. If you get closer to it and you put a light underneath it, it's like more orange and whatnot, because it depends on where the light is, how close the light is, angle, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
There's and this is why I love talking about beer. There's so many things to learn about it.
Oh gosh.
And so many different, things. I mean, people get, everybody likes to know, what were the hops? What were the malts? But then this whole like idea of what are other things that will, transfer to how it looks. It's just really cool.
And to that point too, like lager brewing and brewing like we do, because we don't distribute, we sell 90% of our beer on tap.
Yeah.
So I have to think about what a beer is going to taste like, and I like to think that it matures over time, right? Because there's somebody once said you drink a beer to perfection, and so as a beer ages and you drink it, it eventually finds that exact spot where it's like, there it is, got it.
Yeah.
And like I've been doing these beers here long enough now where I kind of know how long a Hefeweizen's going to take in the bright tank, sitting, off of the yeast bed before I know that it's exactly where I want it, because some fuel, all this other kind of stuff. So as a beer drinks to perfection, or drinks to like drinkability, if I'm going to make, it's like I've got a Rausch beer, or Alk, beer, smoke beer in the tank right now. I have to think about what that's going to taste like 3 months on tap, not the first week.
Sure.
You know, because larger breweries that have distribution, most of your beer, let's say 70% of it goes out the door, and it's sold pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
It just, your turnover on those products is so fast, and there's no hold on for shelf stability here. This is all natural.
no pasteurization.
No, none of it. No, none of it. So recipe design is that way. The adherence to all these and that is one reason why, doing like an old school mash regimen really brings out a lot of like available nitrogens and free amino acids and all this other stuff that like really help yeast perform well, which good performing yeast means longevity of flavor and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
But like with this beer, it sat in the tank, and people ask me when's Vinox coming out, and I honestly answer, and it's anecdotally funny, but I have no idea. I don't know when this is going to be ready.
Yeah.
It'll tell me.
Yeah.
When it's ready, it's ready. And so that's why I bring samples to Tom, and I sit and I taste all these beers every day, mostly every day. And when a beer's, especially with like a Hefeweizen or something like this, like between day 2 and day 7, could be night and day, or it's between day 2 and like day 13. So drinking it to drinkability and like when to release, it all just tells me. You know what I mean? And that's, I selfishly get to be the one that listens to the beer, which is quite nice. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's really similar to over at Town Hall, Mike Hoops and Derek Brown, when they are thinking about, curating their list for Barrel Aged Week. You can't have a plan.
No.
And they've said the beer tells us when it's ready.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool.
I mean, what that really is, to me, that's just like a giant stress reliever.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Right,
like when's
yeah.
the beer ready? I don't know. It'll show up. It'll
I might
tell
just
me.
start doing that at school instead of I'm just going to get rid of due dates. I'm like, hey, kiddos, you tell me when you're ready to do your paper. I'll just sit back here and yeah. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, because it's like Diana Ross said, you can't hurry love.
No, you
right?
can't.
You know, so it's like you have you have to let it do its thing.
To that point, like into ale points, and this is nothing against an IPA brewer, but I feel like hops fix so many things. Like we talked about earlier, there's no hiding in lagers, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no hiding from the time it took to make the lager. So if you're willing to push a lager out with 3 weeks of lagering, that's going to taste very different than my 11 weeks of lagering.
Sure. I was going to ask, how long did you lager this beer?
So German processes would say that you can lager, quote unquote, an ale, a hybrid ale, or a lager. Basically, lagering is just time under temperature over a certain period of time.
Right. Yep.
So primary on this with all that honey and the big ABV and everything, I think primary was about 10 days. And then I had 7 days of diacetyl rest, which is just built into normal fermentation. And then, 4 or 5 days of dropping the temp down to lager temp, and I lager everything at 3C. We run the whole brewery in Celsius because I don't have to convert things coming from Europe, which is real nice.
Sure.
And then I think this took just under 4 weeks to get to where I wanted it. And then honestly, I thought it was where I wanted it. I put it upstairs, and then I waited another couple of days, and then we put it out.
Okay.
So it really was. And that, a testament to Tom and to Mackenzie, our friend of the house, general manager, is like, they're gracious enough to understand that I'm not procrastinating. I'm waiting patiently.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to use that term with my students too. Well, yeah, you've been waiting patiently on this assignment. Yeah, I'm learning so much here.
You better hope none of your students are listening to this.
Right.
Stay in school, kids. Brew
Yeah,
beer.
that's right. So one of the things I want to talk about, obviously the beers are special, and we've had great conversation about kind of what goes into making the beers. I want to talk about how the community has responded to this place. We talked a lot about how Waldmann Brewery came to be. Take me back to 2017 when you opened the doors. How did people respond to this place?
Can I answer that real quick first? Because I know Tom has an answer, which is good, but I didn't know crap about Waldmann when they first opened in 2017, right? So I came here with a bunch of brewers, and we were all like, finally, lager house.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's all and that was, to be honest, I came that time, and then not again until basically up until I got hired, because I was a Minneapolis kid that didn't own a car.
Oh, sure.
So.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Sorry for interjecting. Go ahead, Tom.
No, all good, all good. No, the community response was overwhelming, and I, mind you, we built to that day over a period of 9 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, not everybody was involved in every aspect of the project, but there was a core group of us, the carpenters and builders and the craftsmen, the brewery designer. There was a core group of us that took that full voyage together, and we had a grand opening party. We had prepared 2 time capsules in the restoration of the building, in the interior demolition of the building prior to the restoration. We found a wedding shoe embedded in the door jamb receptacle at the back of the building. And I researched that a little bit, and that was an old German/Czech tradition. It was a blessing on a house to place a wedding shoe in a door jamb. And so we intentionally, there was a little boy that lived across the street, Lachlan Swanson. Shout out to you, Lachlan, if you ever listen to this. But he was 8 years old at the time, and he was among our strongest, most vocal supporters. Even spoke to the full city council at the last hearing. He prepared a little address literally in purple crayon. It was incredibly heartwarming. And so I asked Lachlan if he had an old shoe that he could give me. And so for our grand opening, we resealed the wall with Lachlan's shoe exactly where the wedding shoe had been.
Oh, funny.
Wow.
And then we invited all the guests who wanted to donate a small object that we could fit in a second time capsule above the front window transom to do so. And we held Lachlan up with an 1850s wrought iron hammer, and he was wearing a Civil War cap, and he pounded in the square-nailed cover for that time capsule, which rests above our front door even to this day. And it was just a great celebration.
Yeah.
That was the party.
Yeah.
There was a huge work up to that, and the broader community sentiment, I think, was a mixture of jubilation that the building had been saved, perplexing responses. People didn't really know what a German lager beer saloon was, and is
Right.
this just another
Yeah.
bar, or is it a brewery, or what box do we put this thing in?
Sure.
And then the city closed the High Bridge for the next 1.5 years, if you recall.
Oh,
Dan,
yeah.
your commute was greatly affected by
Right.
this. So ironically, we ended up in a very 1850s-like setting for some time. I mean, you could have played baseball in Smith Avenue in front of the building for some time. So that took a while to. It really we built up the community recognition and our clientele very gradually. And in retrospect, I think that was a very healthy thing for us
Sure.
because
Why do you say that?
well, because anyone who's in hospitality will recognize the naivete in everything I am saying. I am not of the hospitality industry. I had no prior experience in starting a brewery, much less a restaurant. I had really no intent to do either. Mind you, my mindset at the time was I'm recreating Waldmann.
Yeah.
And trying to understand what that meant and trying to make sure that it was financially feasible at the same time. And so it really took a while to grow our identity, our confidence around that philosophy.
Yeah.
We stuck to it. We haven't deviated from that really at all. And yet that is a esoteric enough niche, between people that are interested in architectural history, people that are beer nerds, people that are culinary nerds, people that love the West 7th community and wanted to check us out. We had to earn our credibility with all of those audiences and have continued to do so, I hope.
Waldmann has always been this kind of a callback to the origin way back when.
Yeah.
And that gives you your uniqueness. That gives you your identity. And so...
Well, it gives us our confidence in being authentic because we're not struggling to figure out who or what we are.
Right.
We know.
And again, this is just the most bass-ackward business plan ever. But honest to God, Dan, we are Waldmann.
Yeah.
And we know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no doubt in my mind. It's not like I tried to capitalize or we tried to capitalize on the lager beer resurgence in 2016, 17. And
Well, it wasn't
there really
happening
was.
yet.
Well, in Denver, it certainly was. Beer Stout among them. But no, but and people have predicted the end of the IPA craze for more than a decade now. And I wasn't predicting that either. It's just that we're Waldmann.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is nothing more grounding than that.
I wonder, as lagers have become more available to a lot of people, in Minnesota, we have, again, kind of an embarrassment of riches when it comes to lagers.
We do.
I mean, we
really do.
We have Arbeiter, we have Venn, we have, Town Hall,
Uda Pills.
Uda Pills,
Shells.
Shells. Bad Weather's doing great lagers. You all are doing great lagers.
Ursa Minor.
Lupulin. Yep. I mean, the name of the brewery is named after a gland in the hop, yet the only GABF awards they've won have been for lagers.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
So that's just really funny. I think lagers are kind of coming back, and a whole new generation of people are discovering them. And now it's like, well, you go to a brewery, it's so refreshing. I'm working on an article from this past summer when I traveled to Louisville. I went to Atrium Brewing, and they had 7 lagers on tap. And I was like, well, I'll never need to leave here. This is just forward my mail and tell my wife I love her. It was a good run, but they got 7 lagers on tap. What do you got? I'm not made of steel. That's happening now. And that has to be, I imagine you're getting a lot of new people coming through amongst the locals who, as Tom, as you mentioned, you kind of have built up that following. What's that like? And that has to be really satisfying that, like, hey, people are coming in here and they're really enjoying what we've been doing the whole time.
Yes. They've been enjoying what we've been doing the whole time. I think the state is the palate is maturing. I think from my point of view, that's what this trend is. And the pendulum is swinging back towards complexity of flavors as opposed to boisterousness of flavor, right?
Yeah.
If you put Waldmann's Pilsner next to pick your brewery IPA, and I'll pick out as many flavors from my lager as you can pick out from your IPA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's just a difference in how those feel and the drinkability of it.
Now, one of the things, because you're a brew pub, you have the ability to...
We are now. We started as a brewery.
Right,
but
yeah.
We did a conversion, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have the ability to serve more than just beer. And along the way, you've always been able to have food. Your food is not just, it's not just your... I think when people think, oh, okay, food at a place that serves beer is going to be burgers and fries.
Or Heggie's Pizza.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with Heggie's Pizza.
No, hey, it's delicious. I keep one in my glove compartment just for emergencies. But, you have a vast array of elevated culinary. I mean, your pretzel and the accoutrements that come with it are just not just like a pretzel you're going to get in an Oktoberfest. It's an elevated experience. Talk to me about why the food is the way it is.
It's Waldmann. I wish there was a more sophisticated answer, but I knew from the beginning that we would have a food component. German lager saloons back in the day weren't just, whiskey bars. They were social establishments. They were places where families gathered. The Weisswurst brunch on Sundays on the beer garden with your full family, women in white dresses, brass bands playing. We don't have the brass band every Sunday, but we have the rest of it. And I also think that's also the healthy way to enjoy our beers. I'm not knocking pure taproom models, but I do think that, in fact, going back to when this place was just a rubble of stone in the midst of interior demolition, one of the frequent visitors at the time was an avid cyclist who founded Red Table Meats, just an amazing Wurstmacher. And he and I were having a beer together at a plastic folding table, and he leaned back in his chair and he said, Tom, German lagers would be pretty cool, but when you combine the art of the Wurstmacher and the Brewmeister, you have true magic. And I was like, wow, that is the...
Yes, please.
That is the most amazing...
Sometimes the equation for happiness is quite simple.
Oh, yes. God, yeah.
Beer and sausage. What more do you need?
And
Throw in an Al Green album and you got yourself a party.
Wonderful.
I don't mean to over-dramatize it, but truly, that's how I experienced it. It was a complete light bulb moment that rather than playing it safe and conservative and just having a beer list with limited food, that they would be complementary, mutually supportive, that they would bring in a clientele that would resemble the Waldmann clientele, that would be pro-community, that would be healthy, that would be family-oriented. Most of our festivals, all of our festivals, not most, including our Oktoberfest, which, had gained a bit of a reputation. Our Oktoberfest is one of the most amazing, warm, community-focused gatherings of our year. And the food is all integral to that. It's all scratch-made food. Shout out to Joe and Vincente, our kitchen leads. None of this is, we're not going for haute French cuisine, but there's a magic there nonetheless. Mm-hmm. Our spätzle is handmade every morning. Our versts are made according to our specifications, our original recipe. They're originally made on site here, but that got way crazy. Anyway, but that's the food program today.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned some of your festivals. Your Oktoberfest, I feel like, is there's so many Oktoberfests, and a personal pet peeve of mine is if you're going to have an Oktoberfest and you don't have brats, or you don't have like Oktoberfest music, or you don't have an Oktoberfest beer on tap, you can't call it an Oktoberfest.
No.
Your Oktoberfest is something I look forward to so much because your beer garden is intimate, cozy. The music is great. The Ukrainian, what's the Ukrainian?
UVB, Ukrainian Village Band.
Yeah, Ukrainian Village Band. So cool. And it is such a fun thing. I look forward to that, and I try to loop in as many people as I can grab to come down and have a good time. Sometimes I'll find somebody who hasn't been here yet. I'm like, you got to come to Waldmann. If you haven't been, you need to experience this, and this is the perfect night to experience it. And they love it. They fall in love with the place. Also, we're a couple weeks removed from the St. Nicholas Krampus tree lighting ceremony. That was a big deal. St. Nicholas was a fun primer to Christmas in my household. I still remember, I think I was in first grade, putting my shoe out in the hallway. I got an Ewok action figure when I was little. Nice. And so ever since then, I've celebrated St. Nicholas every single year. And I love that you do things. And it's not just a lot of breweries, when they do an event, it's like a party for adults only, You do incorporate things. I mean, St. Nicholas is there giving out candy. Krampus is there. It's a festive, kind of a family thing. One of the things, I guess one of the blind spots in the Minnesota craft beer scene that I feel is happening is people didn't understand when craft breweries started opening that craft breweries are places that you can bring the family. Obviously, you have to have some education about, okay, how do we act? If you're bringing in some rugrats, how do we act at a brewery?
Sure.
One summer I road tripped through Michigan. I went to 53 different breweries, and every single one there were families there, and nobody was climbing the walls and doing stuff. And so that's one thing that I feel like Minnesota lags a little bit behind on. Okay, so what do we do when we bring kids to a brewery? Do we just let them run amok in the game area, or do we how do we teach that? And on another note, how do we teach our families to respect alcohol, and how do we do that? And I think that this has always been a place where I've seen a varying array of age ranges.
Yeah. How do we teach our families to put down the iPhone?
Right.
I mean, how do we teach our culture generally to interact with one another? And that's one of the powers, I think, of structures like this. Not just Waldmann, but certainly Waldmann included, that these are human spaces. And the way that people interact, Dan, I don't know if you've noticed that here, but aside from maybe the solo drinker at our bar downstairs, generally you will not see people sitting around the tables as you see in many other establishments, all looking separately at their own iPhones.
Right.
We call it the Waldmann Internet, because our internet are the interactions that occur between live people present for one another.
Yeah.
And that's also, I think, underscores another important facet of Waldmann that I think we viscerally understand and hopefully bring back to our modern age culture. Beer exists within cultures. And it's a culture of conviviality, a culture of family, a culture of interaction. It's not a culture of isolation. It's not a culture of pure self-entertainment. And I sound like I don't mean to sound judgy when I say that, but it's a really beautiful thing to see their interactions that can take place in a human scale building built ironically by someone 170 years ago who had only the most intuitive sense of what these spaces could fully achieve, but they nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
To that point in our Oktoberfest too with families, I mean, we have each weekend we had a puppet show for the kids. We had storytellers, interactive storyteller with the kids. We've had hot chocolate out for different events and things like that. So, brew houses, public spaces, places for the public to be.
Yeah.
And that ties into the food menu too. I think it's much easier to bring a child anywhere where there's something for them to snack on.
Sure.
The cheesy spätzle is a hit with the kids,
or
for
a pretzel.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, or a pretzel the size of a city
kid.
bus steering wheel.
Yeah.
That'll get me in the door.
Yep.
That's for sure. Okay, I got one last question for the both of you. What are you most proud of? Or what makes you happiest about Waldmann?
You first, Matt.
I guess I should have said it first. What makes me the proudest? I think I'm proud. I'm proud to be able to continue and further vision that other brewers wish they could have, other brewers have, and that Tom wants to see go forward, and that Tom has let me be a part of going forward. I can't be more proud to just make this beer from a very basic standpoint, mainly because, like, I think if you're lucky enough to be a brewer who gets complete control over design and whatever, that control fosters, at least in me, the want to include more. So I go to Tom and ask him, hey, what kind of beers do you want to see? I talk to our staff. What do we want? I'm proud that when our servers bring out a beer that no one's ever heard of before, they're jazzed about selling it. They're jazzed about trying it. And for me, like, if the beer turns out good and people are happy, that's great. I love it. But selfishly, like, I am proud to brew the type of beers and the history of it. I've anecdotally said before, there's really, like, the three oldest professions are farming, fornication, and fermentation. And so, like, to be part of the history and the fabric of, like, what it meant to be society is, there's no place I'd rather be. What am I proud of? All of it. I mean, I look around, like, I get up here in the morning. I get here at like 5:30 in the morning, and I'll turn on the Christmas lights and have a cup of coffee, just look at the beer garden and be like, yes,
Yeah.
another day of doing this. And that's no joke. I mean, you can go, I said this earlier, like, you don't brew for the money. You brew because you want to brew where you're at least to feel as good as I do going home. I sleep fantastic, and it's because I leave there's no part of me that cuts corners here. There's no part of Waldmann that cuts corners. And I'm confident in everything that happens here. I'm proud of everything that happens here. And I get to leave every day and come back and, bonus, there's a paycheck.
Yeah.
So, sweet.
Bingo.
Bingo. Yeah, I mean, for being put on the spot, like, what am I proud? I mean, it's almost an easier question to answer. What am I not proud of? Not much.
Yeah.
Like, I'm even proud to, like, I'm proud to be humbled. I'm proud to make mistakes. I'm proud to do whatever furthers the ethos of Waldmann.
Yeah.
Straight up.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top that, but I would just say maybe I would use a different word. Proud, to me, maybe places it too much on myself. I'll say I'm the most gratified at the people that are assembled in this project, and especially the current people, obviously, and Matt most importantly among them, but also everyone that pushed us forward to our opening, everyone that's kept us alive to this day, our guests, our neighborhood, our supporters with the city. I'm just gratified that as sort of naively and intensely focused and jazzed as I was about the potential for this project, that all of these people I've just mentioned have not only bought into that vision, but themselves seem enriched by it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's just super fun. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I wouldn't be so bold as to say I'm proud of creating all of that, but I am so lucky that it happened.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've simply been a conduit for a building and a vision that allowed me to be with these fabulous people and keep it rolling. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very enriching conversation, and I want to thank you both for having me here to hear the stories and the passion that's evident in both of you and what you bring to create this special place is very, very admirable, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, and Dan, thank you for continuing these conversations statewide and regionally, and really appreciate your support and getting this word out.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It really is a great passion project to be able to come in and have wonderful conversations centered around craft beer. So this has been another on-location episode of a One Pint Stand at Waldmann Brewery. Cheers.
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 This was such a fun episode. I learned so much about what was happening behind the scenes to get Waldmann Brewery open. Tom is such a gem of a man, and people like him are so important to the fabric of St. Paul. The community is incredibly lucky to have Waldmann Brewery as a place to gather. I have known Matt, Waldmann's head brewer, for several years. He loves his craft, and that shows in every sip of beer that pours out of Waldmann's tap towers. I appreciate how both Matt and Tom really love what Waldmann Brewery has become, and they are tremendous stewards for the Minnesota craft beer industry because they truly understand why craft beer is important to our community. Now, I want to give a special thank you to Marcus Dodson, Chuck Dorsey, Vicky Epper, Daniel Fisher, Todd Fitzloff, Matt Holton, Cable Lefto, Ben Michaels, Sophia Masagi, Brent Newman, Bree Smith, and Sarah Crivalento for being keg stander level supporters of the A One Pint Stand Patreon. You've all shown incredible generosity, and I'm grateful for it. Cheers to you all. I want to give a huge thanks again to the sponsor for this episode, Arbeiter Brewing Company. Gold medal award-winning lagers, a great environment, great people. Folks, they are creme ale de la creme of the Twin Cities breweries. Check them out at Arbeiter Brewing on social channels and on Minnehaha Avenue in South Minneapolis. With that, this has been another episode of A One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast where the pants stay on, but the caps come off. Cheers.
We were not gonna make our servers hate me at all, so we just stuck with Vinox.
Welcome to Waldmann. Would you like to try one? Oh no, I have to go home now. My brain hurts.
Pretty much.
This is